if I say I'm not going to play any more Ubisoft games, that really doesn't impact me in a whole lot, especially because they're shit. And but that's besides the point.
Exactly. Like, oh, good moment to have morals, you know?
Welcome everybody to episode 48 of NGPC New Game Pluscast. My name is Juan Paolini and I'm sitting here with, once again, Cristian Caroli. How are you, my friend?
Doing well. Ready for another episode.
Yes, we are.
We have a spicy one.
Yeah, we have a spicy one, like you say. This time we're going to be talking about, does it make sense to boycott video game companies? I wanted to sort of include the fact that, I mean, you know, that we're not basing our topics necessarily on the news, but it's kind of hard to ignore the fact that, you know, there's this whole thing going on with Ubisoft for a long time. I mean, the first allegations were last year, and now there's been like a new resurfacing with Ubisoft Singapore, and more, let's say, not more importantly, but like making more of the news now is the fact that Activision Blizzard has this whole sexual harassment allegations and also discrimination against female employees and stuff like that. So, like Cristian and I, we're not lawyers. We don't work at Activision Blizzard. And so we're not, like, I wouldn't really go into the specifics of the trial itself because I think that there's more competent people that do that. I would cite an example of Last Stand Media. They've worked with this guy called Rick Hogue, who has a channel called Virtual Legality, where he's a lawyer and he kind of goes through it and he gives his perspective, which is pretty valuable. So I would encourage you to do that if you're looking for that kind of content. We're going to be talking about like the gamer side of it, right? Like our perspectives on, does it make sense? Like, what do we do in response to all this? So one of the first things that came up to me, like when these Ubisoft things came out and now with Activision Blizzard, is, so does it make sense for me to now not buy these games? Like we know that Diablo 2 Resurrected is coming on, and I was pretty excited about that one. Of course, there's Call of Duty. And, well, I'm not really that excited about Ubisoft games. We already covered that in a couple of episodes ago. But, so yeah, I mean, this episode is going to revolve around this question. Does it make sense to boycott video game companies? And we have some topics that we're going to go through, like some really cool questions that I think that could spice up the conversation. But just to begin, I would love to get your initial stance on this topic, and then we'll go into specifics.
Mine, I would say, so Juan, I would say that for me, it's like the classic, it depends. Like, I know that sometimes because you're like in your right to be disappointed, and I think that if you're disappointed and you want things to change, the only way that you can affect that is through like voicing your opinions and as well like with your wallet. But for me, when you vote with your wallet, it's regarding the product that they're offering to you, not how it gets made, or like what is it that you're really supporting.
Yeah, I do agree with that, because one thing that I wanted to make a distinction here is there is such a thing as like when I think of the word boycott, I think of kind of maybe in an activist sort of way, kind of doing it because you're against philosophically what's going on at the company, or maybe you're against ideologically. We kind of covered how we are very opposed to, for example, the Marxist views on games. Game studios. Like, what's the name of the guys that did Disco Elysium? Do you know the studio?
I think it's Bomb.
Okay, so like they've accepted awards where they thank Lenin, and they have an unironically, how you phrased it last time, unironic a Stalin poster, which is not very dissimilar to having an unironic Hitler poster, in my opinion. Like when you think of all the things that happened, but that's a topic for another podcast maybe. So that's one thing, right? And I think this relates a little bit to that. But then how you said, like, voting with your wallet also comes in when you're like, okay, so I don't like how these games are shifting towards. Like, for example, we could take a Assassin's Creed, for example. Like, you and I are probably not gonna get the next Assassin's Creed, not gonna get the next Far Cry and stuff like that. And even though Ubisoft has its problems with the whole sexual allegation workplace environment thing, that's not necessarily the first reason or the only reason we're not buying them. We're not buying them because, okay, so I don't like this, basically. Like, it's as simple as that, right? Like, there is that this distinction of I don't like this, or I like this, but I can't support this company because, I don't know, like, well, we already covered it. So that is go.
I think that, like I would say that I always try to see things like from my individual point of view. But if I were to say, like, rally people and be like, okay, let's actively boycott this company because they're against my ideals, I think that for the biggest part is pointless, because I think that first, like, most of the people that organize these boycotts, and they don't participate in anything related, like they don't consume the products, like for most of the cases. I know what I'm kind of like going with this, but like, give me a break here. I think that most of the people that are like directly say just don't buy this, don't let's sabotage this company, let's stop it, are not like real fans. Because if the product that you're boycotting is an active part of your life, where it's a product that you work for or a piece of entertainment, it's not that easy, because also, like, it's kind of like part of your identity. And I think that with games that happens a lot. So I think that there's kind of like a line there, in the sense of, like, it shouldn't be that easy to say, especially for things like for people like streamers. Like, if a streamer says, I'm not gonna play Warzone ever again, that's more than a political decision. That's also inherently a financial decision.
Exactly.
And then it's like it's complex. It's not only I'm not gonna give them money. It's like I'm not gonna make as much money myself. So that's a bit tricky. And the same time, as a consumer, I would say there's a social price to that. Like, okay, I'm not gonna play this anymore with my friends, so I'm not gonna have as much fun because of how I feel about this company. But I think that even within there, like, you have to figure out what's the goal. Like, what is it that you're trying? What happens if we succeed? Like, there's no more Call of Duty in the universe. Like, that's ultimately what would happen if, like, everyone decides to start playing Warzone. Like, there will be no more Warzone. Is that like, inherently, is that the problem, or like that there's an actual problem that we are helpless to?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with the fact that it's tricky, because I love the distinction you made about the streamers, which in this case I would also add maybe news outlets and media or journalists or stuff like that, because their job depends on covering these games, right? Like their livelihood, and then us consumers. So let's start with the streamers. So the thing about that is that I do believe that, so if you, as an outlet or as a streamer, whatever it is, want to stop covering X game because you don't agree with something or you're against something, that is something that I totally respect, because that's your decision. That's a personal decision, and I respect it a little bit more because I know that there's stakes there, right? If I, as a consumer, say, because I mean we're not getting paid with NGPC to cover anything yet, so we're still consumers in that front. If I say I'm not going to play any more Ubisoft games, that really doesn't impact me in a whole lot, especially because they're shit. And but that's besides the point.
Exactly. Like, oh, good moment to have morals, you know? Like,
exactly.
Like, if you're doing it right now, it's like, well, okay. Like, yeah. Like, people are already leaving Warzone because of the hackers, and like, everyone, and every other Blizzard game is being run to the ground to what once was. So I guess that in those cases, it's also kind of like an easy decision. Like, okay, I'm not
Oh,
gonna keep playing Overwatch. It's like, well, it's are there like what year are we on? Like, are there people playing Overwatch? Like good for you.
yeah, 100%. Actually, I think Chris Reagan from Last Time Media said this in a podcast recently, where he was like, "Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like they're giving us good games recently to be excited about or anything. I mean, I did mention Diablo because I mean, I played that game so many times back in my childhood, but that's kind of one of these one-offs for me, at least. I don't really mess with any other Blizzard products in general.
I'm never paying for a remake from them again. They already stole $30 from me from Reforged. So
Oh yeah.
product wise, I was already and I already have a Hearthstone account with like I probably spent like over 500 euros on my card collection that I'm no longer using because I no longer like the game. So for me, it's like this is like even more incentive to be like fuck this company,
Fuck this company. Yeah.
like I can't, like I can't defend them. Like if you ask me about the depths, I know that like part of like what we should discuss as well is like who is this really hurting, and it hurts to death because like the vast majority of developers are not sex offenders. We're barely sex active. Like it's like, dude, like these people are just like trying to make games. There
Yeah.
are some dicks, and they should be removed. And I think that there's kind of like a difference that I think that is important here when it comes to like what is it that the company stands for, because like the for me when the Hong Kong thing happened, I felt like this is corporate Blizzard taking a stand, saying like we will not accept politics in any shape or form, even if this imply basic democracy or freedom of speech. So for me, it's like this is a red flag for this company. I don't want to support them. But now with the whole sexual harassment thing, I understand that that like according to their corporate values and whatnot, this is not what they wanted. Like this is not, like it's not like their values are let's be pricks and let's harass women. Like it's
Yeah.
something that needs to change, and I'm sure they will try to change it because this is bad publicity and it doesn't make money. But it is and but that does not apply as a corporate rule, at least for me. You know.
Yeah, totally. And back to what you mentioned about the Blitzchung debacle
Yeah.
that happened last year, right? That
Yeah, it was
was
last year.
so the thing about that I find really egregious is that not only like as you said, like it's them taking a stance, but the stance about not having politics in games is total bullshit. Because I mean, we know that the fact that the whole reason why they blocked all that is because they have Chinese money in their like they have Chinese stockholders, I believe, and like these sorry, and there's a distinction also to make like, about between Chinese people and the CCP, so, which is the Chinese Communist Party. We know that they're doing things like keeping people in concentration camps. There have been like wigs coming out of China that have human hair. They traffic organs. So I mean,
They do
the
it.
things that they do is
It's terrible. It's terrible government.
exactly.
It's another set of values that it feels like they're different, like a different type of human beings. Like it's just not aligned with my values, and that for me, it's a corporate thing that makes me say I can't stand this, and that's probably true for several companies because Tencent owns a big part of Epic Games as well and Riot,
Riot. Mhm.
but the way that they act around it or the way that they separate both markets, I think it's a bit smarter. And yeah, like you could say that you don't want to have politics in your game, but you're lying. Like this is they do, and they do this within their narrative regarding like inclusion. Now that inclusion is on itself a political ideology, not at all. But they do a lot of like pink marketing, which in the end they do it out of like just trying to show some external virtue that they obviously don't have as a company. And like there was a tweet like, how come that there's all this bad stuff happening in Blizzard when every other Overwatch character is gay? And it's like, It's like it's always like they have a narrative for the games, and I think that it's important to say that games are a platform. Like when you like the game itself does not represent what it took to be built for most of the cases. Like it's fun. Like if well, not Blizzard games anymore, but let's imagine like when Overwatch was released, or like the first 3 or 4 years of Hearthstone. Like they were fun games. There were games that you were like everyone can play this. They're cool. You can play with your friends. It's just massively enjoyable. They just work. They perform well. And on themselves, they're good products. And at the same time, these are companies that they have thousands of employees. So something that's happening right now is that they're digging through like every bad thing that ever happened in those buildings. And for example, there was some news about a guy that installed cameras in the bathrooms, and this was kind of like an IT guy that obviously he was being a crip, and immediately when that happened, he got fired, and like it was handled the way it was meant to be handled. Like corporations are not intimately responsible for every single action that happens within their campus, as long as they act accordingly. You know,
Sure.
like I'm sure that
Yeah.
people have gone over the line, they got fired for doing the wrong thing, and like, well, it happens. Like you may have like a bad environment that fostered as that, but I don't think that it was a bad.
Yeah, it's not like Activision Blizzard heard about this guy and was like, "Could you do that in all the bathrooms?"
Exactly.
No,
Like,
it's
oh my god, can we support this? You need a full team. What's a head count if we're actually gonna get this party going? Like in
yeah, exactly.
retrospective, everything seems like meant to be. Like, oh my god, they had the Cosby suite
Oh yeah,
during that conference, and then it's like back then the Cosby allegations didn't were not there. Like, yeah, some women like 10 years before had said something about him, but like if you knew Bill Cosby because he had like horrible sweaters, and that's it. And then some people were like, well, why didn't do, Mrs. Rogers' suite instead? And it's like, because no one knows who that guy is. So, like, I don't, because that's not the fucking joke, Like, it was, obviously, they were chatting and, like, they were bantering. They were, like, doing things that were probably professionally unacceptable. But again, I don't think anyone was rewarding that.
yeah. I think that, for example, the Cosby thing, like they're all sitting in the ground or wherever they are, like posing next to a picture. Like if they knew at that time that he was a rapist, they wouldn't have posed for that picture. I
Yeah,
mean,
you wouldn't do that if you're
yeah,
a sex predator. Like you don't do that. If you're a
no,
serial killer, like who I like? Charles Manson. You want to see Mindhunter? My favorite movie, Seven. I like blood. Like you don't
no,
do that. If they were
yeah, yeah.
doing that, they were, if anything, they were hiding behind the curtain of virtue signaling, of the curtain of LGBT values, like be behind inclusivity and whatnot, and then doing all that random crap that people do that behind doors, and that's kind of like the main thing. Also,
Yeah.
like I really want to stress out how important it is that their games right now are shit, because there's
Okay.
no one defending them. There's no one, like everyone's dogpiling on them, everyone's hating on them. But if this were to happen to a more beloved company, like some people would be like asking questions, trying to like defend some people, but everyone's like, fuck that company, burn it to the ground. And it's just because the games are not in a good point, which with at the same and at the same time, it just shows how hypocritical the whole thing looks like from the outside. Like, we just want good games. you
Yeah,
know
it's I do see what you're saying, because like if they had good games, which it's funny, but I agree. You would see more defense to their cause, even though I don't think they deserve the defense.
no,
I
no, no,
think
no, no.
they,
On the contrary.
yeah, I want to make this clear, even though we said the whole Cosby thing and whatever. So what I think that is right and what I think should happen, what I stand uh, for in this case, is for the truth to come out and for the people who did bad things to get punished or go to prison or be fired or whatever it is that they have to be. But there's no need to add more unnecessary things on top of it that aren't true. And in this case, the whole Cosby thing, is not true. I mean, sorry, it is true that there was a Cosby suite, but it is not true that they did it because of the reasons that their people that people
Yeah,
are saying
they were not
so,
drugging people and
yeah,
having sex with them being unconscious.
exactly.
There was kind of like a bantering nature around it that had kind of like this bro culture sexual thing that when you see it in retrospective, you could probably say, man, this is bad. And yeah, like that's the problem of acting that way in the workplace, because if something bad happens, then everything will explode. Like, and that's why some people prefer to be a bit more reserved. They prefer to be, more less curious about like what the social, the social potential of their skills is. And I think there were things that just were pretty inappropriate for a company, like the cube crawls and stuff like that. I think that overall, everything that's in that lawsuit, that, as you said, like that was explained like in that episode of Last Night Media, where they talked about basically like what the lawsuit is about. It is reprehensible. Like that should change, and there are things in that company that should change from the bottom up. But I think that there are a lot of there's like two types of dogpiling that are happening on top of like demanding a change, which is, first one is people that don't play games and they don't give a shit, just like ranting about it, like what's your stake on this, like why do you want them burned to the ground so bad? And then also people that they no longer like their games, that are just like piggyback, like, yeah, like piggybacking on
Yeah,
the fact
piggyback. Yeah,
that that they're having like they're kicking them while they're down. And I think that both things are just like in this particular situation are just like on top of it.
absolutely. And I think it's like, I mean, we're having this conversation here because I think it's interesting, but like, I do think that, and yeah, like everybody has the right to voice their opinion on Twitter, especially where people are particularly special. But I like, if you're dogpiling onto this just because you don't like their games, I do feel that it's a little like, really, man.
It's
It's like,
super stupid, super
because
stupid.
it's super stupid, because this is a real important cause. These are things that are important that happen in the world so that we can have a better world. And I know that sounds totally Disney, totally like like very naive of me to say, but like, I'm a man in this case. I'm white passing, or white. I don't really think about that too much, which is in itself probably white privilege or whatever you want to call it. But if I have a daughter and she is also super into games and she wants to be a developer, which that would make me really proud, by the way. If she wants to go work in the industry, I want her to go into an industry that is going to give her the same opportunities that it would have given me in my time, So these are important things. I think we can all agree on that, right? But yeah, like, don't dogpile on the thing, or don't piggyback on the thing just because you don't like their games. Like, please keep the things that are important in mind.
And I think that it's also important that there's a lot of, like, we're looking at a lot of like video game related stuff through the lens of politics. Like, for example, there was this video recently about a comparison between Halo and Call of Duty, how they implemented physics on fruit, like when you shoot fruit on a market. And then the Halo Infinite fruit physics are pretty bad. And
Fruit physics.
the fruit, exactly, the fruit physics are pretty bad. And then the Call of Duty ones are great, like they're pretty cool. And then some people were comparing them and whatnot. And then part of the discussion revolved around like, well, you know what, that was built on overtime, or like an intern working on that during crunch time and stuff like that. And it's like, not really. Like, the fact that you have attention to detail does not necessarily mean that comes from terrible working conditions. That's how winning gets done. Like, a lot of the motivation and the competition here is pretty high end. And like, we cannot, I don't think that you should play a game being worried about how the workers were treated, because that's not your job. Like, that's not your fight. Like, you could demand them to like, you could say like you wish for it to be better, and you could be voice that you want it to be better. but it shouldn't like make your experience better or lesser. At least that's kind of like how I see it. Like I don't want to like go through everything and see, okay, what's political side of this so I can feel good.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you mean. Like, in my case, what I think about that, like, we're going into the crunch discussion, which is also pretty interesting. Like, I don't think that it should be necessary for people to crunch. If people crunch on their own accord, like I've crunched on like doing videos or doing my own things. So does that, like, that was my decision, right? So if it's people's decisions doing it, you decided that, right?
And
Like,
these are life changing decisions. Like these games, shipping a game as a video game developer is super important. Like it's it like your bonuses depend on that, which again you could say like that's part of the system that oppresses them. But at the same time, these are people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like some of them, like the biggest crunchers are the ones that have the most responsibility, and it's kind of like a lifestyle decision to some extent. Inevitably, I would say, like it's you're and also it's if you're making one thing and this is the moment where you can have like all your focus. You don't have a family, you don't have kids, you just want to make games and you want to dedicate 20 hours a day to it. Go for it. Like honestly, like what's I understand that there are laws, but there's also like individual freedom, and that's how winning gets done. Like it's been that way since the beginning of time. Like you get earlier than your neighbor and you farm better. I don't know. Like I just maybe I'm just being stupid, or like that's how I see it.
no,
I
no,
un-
it's
but it's just how it is. But again, like if you go into an environment and they tell you that they don't crunch, that is perfect, and then it happens, then it's like, well, they fuck you over. But if the opposite, it's true, which is, hey, this is where you come to ship the best games that ever existed, which is kind of like the case with Naughty Dog. And you're like, okay, sign me up. And you work there for 5 years, you make a buck, and then you can go anywhere. It's a sweet deal. It's a fast track in your career.
yeah, and in some way it is, but I think that also, like, I don't want to speak out of turn because of course I haven't worked in any of these companies, but like, I really doubt that the company is the one that's instilling the crunch, if that makes sense, right? Like, if that's the case, if bosses are sitting around saying you can't leave until blah blah blah, that is probably illegal, and that I don't really
Yeah,
sign up
and,
for.
and at the
But
same and at the same time, and at the same time, for most games, we don't know. We
oh
have
no,
no we
yeah,
have no idea.
exactly. Like we went through some of our favorite games last episode, and there's a probability that some of them, or even maybe all of them, crunch. We don't know. Like we don't
If
have an
we
idea.
had Japanese games, there are people who were working on Sundays, no problem.
Yeah,
Culturally,
that's also something interesting that we could. I would love to talk about crunch. Maybe dedicate an episode to it. But yeah, like we don't really ever talk about crunch in Japanese, like in other than Western studios, which
yeah.
is also very interesting. But yeah,
But going out a little bit back to the subject at hand, when it comes to like let's say you want to say I want to boycott this studio because they crunch, which is pretty much what's kind of happening with Naughty Dog, that they have a pretty progressive fan base baseline, so they are concerned like because it's also a studio that sells themselves as very progressive. The first, I don't know, the first female lead game ever existed.
ever there
Ever.
doesn't exist.
There were no women before The Last of Us in video games. But I mean, they do sell themselves that way. Like they no longer do the fat Nathan Drake. Like
Oh yeah,
like the what was it, the donut Drake, like they no longer, you can no longer do that, and basically they have all these accessibility options in their game that is just fucking incredible. It's amazing. They build games that anyone can play, but then the price behind that seems to be a lot of crunch, and it's a lot of crunch in a company that has all the resources in the world. The amount of consultants and providers that they have is huge. It's really a massive endeavor to build those games. It takes them like 7 years to ship a single game, and in that time, like some people leave. But But like, here's the thing, and when it comes to like choosing not to play a game because of how it was made, I think that there, like, it depends on your experience how you take that decision. But for the most case, the vast majority of people that play games, they have no idea how games are made. They have no idea which studio makes the game. They don't care. They don't read this news. So also, who are you doing this for when you say, like, I'm going to boycott this company? Are you doing it for you? Are you doing it for the deaths that you're hurting? Are you doing it for the landscape? Like, ultimately, why?
Okay, yeah, I think that's a total valid question, and it kind of is a perfect segue into the Alana Pierce video that I wanted to talk about, which I sent you, and I encourage everybody to watch it. It's about the whole Activision Blizzard thing, and why we shouldn't boycott video games. So she has a couple of points here that I just summarized it, but as I said, I encourage everybody just to watch that first if they want to. So not buying these companies' games hurts the devs more than the executives. I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but I mean
because these executives should be kicked out because there was sexual harassment in the workplace that was almost institutionalized, and nothing was done about them. That's why they should be kicked out, not because, oh my god, we sold a lot less car packs in Hearthstone, you're fired. Like, first, that's not gonna happen at all. Like no one's gonna make that decision. um and second, because like what you need is an institutional change that does not come from a commercial point of view. Like, it has to come from internal pressure and the law and lawyers and good government regulations around safety in the workplace.
yeah, totally. I mean, I think you said it best with that comparison, because like, do we really want to get these people fired for the wrong reasons? That's not really, that doesn't make sense. I mean,
Also,
maybe
they're already doing a great job at that. No one's better at destroying Blizzard games than their own executives. So
no one's better
we should ask them to stop boycotting their own games.
themselves.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's like probably they're reading their own news and being like, "Woof, this can't go on.
Yeah,
No one
absolutely.
should buy this crap."
So this other point that I think is pretty interesting: not buying them can lead to devs having bonuses cut. This is something that totally happens, and you mentioned before that you could argue that the fact that these bonuses are tied to sales or whatever it is part of the system that is kind of oppressing them. You could make that claim, which I don't know, like, then what's the answer? To not have a bonus? Like, I don't
These
know.
are
It's just,
bonuses. These are
yeah.
bonuses. Like, if you're planning your entire economical landscape around your bonuses, you're probably doing a bad job, unless you know that it's coming. If these are incentives for you not to drop, it's like they're not Hail Marys. Like, I'm sure that when people were working on The Last of Us and there were sale incentives around it, it's also to spread the wealth. Like, these are wealth distribution systems. Like, if the game sells this much, then you get this much, which makes sense because that's a good. Otherwise, it's such a clean cut, and then you go into the other part, which is, then who's taking all the money? Like, no, like, if it, like, these bonuses should exist, and yeah, they will hurt them because like those bonuses will not be. They have to be the product of the launch, because then there's different ways of commercializing and monetizing on games that might not include the same teams or the same work. Like, the gameplay teams, and they 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 probably have a different set of goals than whoever does that the teams that work on the live service of a game. I'm sure that the team that does skins for Fortnite makes billions of dollars, but they can't get, like, revenue based on that. It has to be shared with the other teams, because like no one's playing Fortnite for the sounds or for the soundtrack. So it's so this has to exist to some extent.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do, like, I could understand the argument of like the fact that these bonuses are tied to these, let's say, metrics is a little bit. I mean, I don't think it's unfair. I just think that I don't know, man. I mean, there comes a point in these conversations where it's just like, this is how it is, and
Yeah.
you know what I think. It's just like, what? So
It, and it depends on your responsibility, because if you're the art director, and yes, it's your fucking responsibility that this game looks good, and if it looks good, it might sell. But if you're like the tools programmer, or you're the IT guy, and it's like, I have like I you had internet during the whole development process. Where's my bonus? Like, why do I care if this thing sells? And I think that also the bonus structure is pretty different, and the baseline of that bonus structure, if anything, has to be, like, generous. But I think that if a game doesn't sell, you're not gonna get more money. But if a game sells too much, or it's a huge hit, then yeah, you should get rewarded. But that's also
100%.
not to me as a consumer. Like, it's not like I'm not gonna buy. Like, it's like, oh my god, little Timmy needs a house, and his dad is senior gameplay developer at Santa Monica Studio. Oof, I'm gonna buy like the special edition God of War 2 when it comes out. Like, it's like, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I just want to play God of War. Like, if I've seen Corey Balrog's TV, like, it's super big. He doesn't need any more money. It's okay. I judge a
Nice.
man's wealth by the size of his TV, and he's good. It's good for. So he just I'm not planning on buying the game because he needs the cash. I'm planning on buying the game because the first one rocked, and I'm sure they're gonna do a better job in the next one. So
Yeah, 100%. But I do think it's good to measure a man's wealth by the size of his
size of the
TV. That's
TV. When
awesome.
people tell me I don't have a TV, I'm like, you're fucking insane.
You know what? I that this actually is something I want to talk about. What do you feel in your soul when you hear somebody that says, "Oh no, I don't watch TV." Well,
When they say, it depends, because if like they don't
uh-huh.
watch TV, like local TV, which used to be my case, then it's like, okay, I get it. But when they say I don't have a TV, I watch like movies on my laptop or the iPad, I think like, what the fuck is wrong? And then like, I haven't gone to the movies in 4 years or stuff like that. It's like, what? Like, I immediately think this guy's crazy. Like, this person does not understand entertainment. Like, you need a TV. Like, at least, some type of screen that you could just properly watch a movie. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
For
Like,
me, it's crazy that here in Spain, most people don't really have like a good TV. In the
mm,
US, it's the opposite. I have
yeah,
friends that they barely have any furniture, and then their TVs are like 70 inches, and it's like, dude, this is how you live.
yeah, it's crazy. But
But
the other
Corey
part,
Balrog's is massive. If you scroll through his Twitter feed, man, it's just a fucking cinema, glass cinema
it's
on his house. He
yeah,
deserves
it's
this though. So glad that he has that. Makes me happy.
yeah. The
Like,
thing that I feel
a little pixel in that screen. It's from my from my budget.
from
Buying
yeah,
all those
from
God
your
of War games.
contribution.
For my contribution, buying all those God of War games during the past 20 years. So yeah, he's enjoyed.
Yes, all blessings to him. Even though I'm not religious, but blessings to him
Yeah,
and
yeah,
his team.
exactly. But yeah, I guess like in the same idea, it's like, is that like the bonuses are cool if they have the bonuses, good. And I don't want to, like, if I'm mad at a company, I don't want the developers having to bear the responsibility when they're not the ones responsible.
I totally agree. I don't think I have anything more to add to this. Just like hearing her talk about, like, because I know that she mentions somebody specific in that tweeted about this, and that she was a developer, and kind of calling people to not do this because it hurts them and blah blah blah. And I thought that, wow, I had never like seen it from that perspective. When you get to see something like something that you think about a lot from a different perspective. In this case, like, so these women, for example, let's say that they're in Activision Blizzard, or sorry, in Blizzard, which seems to be the one that is taking the cake with all these allegations, because you don't hear anything about Sledgehammer or Treyarch or Raven. Like, it's all centered in Blizzard, which is pretty unfortunate. But hey, so imagine you're working there, you're a developer, whatever it is that you do, and like your boss is an asshole. maybe you have a couple of coworkers who are these bro-ish kind of dudes, which I totally hate. Like that kind of behavior, it's usually pretty annoying to me. And I don't know, like your hours are maybe decent or whatever, but you're working on this game. You're working maybe on modeling this orc. I don't know, just off the top of my head. And you put so many hours into the teeth and into the thing, and maybe you create a backstory for it, and as to why he has this dent on his armor. Maybe he fought a whatever. Like you're this passionate person working on this passionate project, and then because of this system that's going on around you that you don't really agree with, but you're there for the product, then your work gets dragged through the mud. Like, that is something that I absolutely can empathize with. And I think that it's something that should, like, people should know about this. Like, I think it's a pretty important part of the discussion.
Also, these people, they're already the victims. They are the victims. This is not a victimless crime. They are the victims. These developers, these underrepresented minorities working in these companies, these women, they are the ones that they are the potential victims, or the victims themselves of all this. And then you're gonna punish them too. It's like, it's the whole thing that's corrupted. Like, kind of like Rorschach and Watchmen, like let it all burn. Like, no, that's not the case. They are the ones that should champion the fight, and ultimately they're the ones responsible for their own well-being, and they should do whatever is best for them. But I don't think it's up to me to be like, I decide that Blizzard is no more, and then I just don't. And you don't even do anything. You just it's the opposite. It's the absence of action. Like, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna give you any more money. It's like, wow. I wonder if they can. I wonder if there's a way around that. Like something called marketing, where they reach people that they don't know shit about the controversy, and then they sell the copy that was supposed to be mine to someone else. Because that's the other point that she makes, which is um, that companies will find more aggressive, strategies to monetize. Like, if anything, it will change the nature of how the game sells, because it is a business. Like, bottom line of as much as we love games, these are businesses, these are companies, and if it's not profitable, then these games will not exist. Simple as that. Of
Yep.
this size.
And in this case, with what she described and you described, it could make your games worse. Like, if this happens. So yeah, totally.
And we have seen this. We have seen companies that their games start not selling that well, and they start, like, putting the microtransaction hammer to work, and the game feels more grindy. It requires more money from you if you're a user that likes to spend money. Like, you will see it. You will see the change, because you will see it in your wallet, and then you will also see it in the game. And I'm not saying like that's kind of like the direct countermeasure, but yeah, like, it's not just about money. Plenty of times.
Yeah, exactly. And she also talks about some charities that you could donate to that I assume help this situation in some kind of way. So that is also something you could do if you want, if you're inclined to do so, to help this situation. But from what we've covered in this episode and what she talks about, which I encourage you to see, it's not really helpful for you to not buy these games, even though it may seem the sensible thing to do, because ultimately your money is going to these executives if you buy it. But that's not the way. Like, there is a better way to do
It
this.
depends what you're looking for. If you
Yeah,
wanna,
exactly.
if what you want is a change, but you wanna, like, in this company, so you can come back later and continue playing Overwatch. Don't know why, but that's what you want to do. Then that's also like Overwatch. Is it free? Like, do you still have to pay $60?
Yeah,
I'm guessing
yeah.
like it's still. I'm guessing like you still need to buy it, right?
You still need to buy it. Yeah.
But you already have the game. So, like, if you already have the game, then what you're gonna do? In most of the cases, like, obviously there's new things coming around, but like, there's also the idea of saying, like I did, I'm done with Blizzard.
Hmm.
I'm done. Like it just keeps getting worse, and I think that kind of lands in a different topic, because a company can be so bad that they put you off as a customer. You know, I think we were talking about this like the last time we were talking about like Woody Allen. Like it's like you don't feel like watching his like you could. It's safe to say that some people might be like, I don't want to watch his movies anymore because like there's too much baggage and like I just don't care. I'd rather watch something else. And there are people that are gonna be like, I don't give a shit. I'm
Yeah.
just the movies are good. I'm like the actors are good. He's a good director, not a good human being, allegedly. So those kind of conversations. And I think that it's okay for you to say I'm not gonna give more money to this company unless they do things better. And I think those are true. Like one thing is like to boycott and be like, oof, I want to do these specific actions just to feel better for myself. And then the other one where you're just like, I'm tired, I'm
Yeah.
done. Like there's nothing calling me here. There are, and the opposite actually happens. Like there are studios that their games are so good and their philosophies are so good and their people are so great that you buy every single game that they make. Like I don't know, for example. With Super Giant games. I think I bought every single Super Giant games at least in three different systems. To be honest, like I buy their games three times. I buy it like I think I bought Bastion five times because I bought it like when it came out on Xbox 360. I bought it on the PC. I bought it on the Switch. I bought it on the PS4. And I bought it on the Chrome store because it was a game that you could play on your browser. So I bought it five times. I like that game a lot, and I think that the other games I also hate is I bought it on the Switch, and I'm gonna buy it on the PS5. So, and it's because I believe that this is a good company, these are good games. I like the work that Greg Kasabin has been doing as a creative director, and it's the whole opposite side of the spectrum. It's like I want this type of company to flourish and to be more successful, and in a way to be part of that as a client. So
Oh yeah, I think that kind of to wrap it up somewhat. Although I do believe that there's a couple things we still need to talk about. Is that yeah, like we're not telling you to necessarily buy a game you don't want just to support that doesn't make any sort of sense. No, we're just saying that if you are passionate about these games, if you're passionate about Overwatch, which Christian cannot understand you. Like no, like that,
this
like
shouldn't happen to a different studio. So it was actually like a struggle. Like oh my god.
exactly. I totally get you. Yeah, yeah, because I haven't played any Blizzard things in I don't know how long, like really, but and the same with Ubisoft, like right, like we talked about how we're so disappointed, and it's like okay, I won't buy anything else from these people.
If this was happening to Respawn Studios, I would be like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? There's a new Jedi Fallen Order on the pipeline. Like, am I supposed like I wanna play Apex? Like, I'd be conflicted in the inside. But right now, I'm like, just don't fucking do it. Like, these guys don't deserve your money.
Exactly.
So,
But let's
but
say like
but for
yeah,
some
like
people, this is a valuable discussion in the
yeah,
sense that they're conflicted. They're conflicted.
exactly.
They want to play the next Diablo.
Exactly. Well, I would like to play it, but it's not like I'm dying to either. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm probably gonna play it, but like I have so many things in my list right now that are so good that it's like maybe not, you know. But yeah, like back to the thing. If you want to play these games, play them without remorse because the way to help the situation is not by not buying these games necessarily. You can donate, you can spread awareness, you can do other things that will help. And I also want to make this point is that this may sound very selfish from me, but it's also not your job to help these kinds of things. Like you don't work there. You don't have any power over this company really, if you think about it. So don't really stress about it that much, right? It's sort of what we were talking about at another episode where like voting with your wallet is something I totally believe, and you should feel good about what you're buying. Like if you're gonna buy something and then feel remorse, don't buy it. Like that doesn't make any sense for whatever reason. But if you do want to buy something, is it really necessary for you to feel actual remorse? Because like thinking about it in a very broad sense, and I this may sound very cynical, but and it is, but like if you have an iPhone, that thing was made in China, and probably during very horrible conditions where supposedly people commit suicide in Foxconn and companies like this. If you have a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, that was probably manufactured in China. It's pretty safe to say the same thing there. If you eat meat, are you sure that the meat you're eating is from humanely treated like animals or something like that? Like, you could nitpick this to no end. And so what I would advise you to do is relax, try to do your best, but don't stress over things that you really don't have that much control over. Because if you wanted to spend morally and spend responsibly and do all that, you would probably have to be Viggo Mortensen in Captain Fantastic. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, fucking amazing.
I bet brutal.
You would I think that the word there is kind of like compromise. There are some compromises that we have to do and be aware of them and understand that life is complex and things are not straightforward. You know, a blend like the industry line in order for you to get like a physical game at your doorstep, it's full of really honest, hardworking people that they have done nothing wrong and they're just doing their jobs. Not like they're following orders; they're doing the job. They're doing the best they can, and
Following orders.
and and the people that are not are the ones that should be punished, and that's someone else's responsibility. Guilt is one of those pretty useless feelings when you cannot act upon it. So I think that philosophically, you should surrender the guilt that you cannot change. Like, can I change this? And I feel guilty. Then feel guilty until you change it. But if you cannot drive a change with your guilt, then you have to drop it. Like, I don't know how. Like, I'm not a psychologist, but for me, it's usually kind of like that switch of like, this is absolutely out of my control, and the struggle is not worth the effort. And I think that the case applies here with games. Like, if you play Overwatch to relax, let's go again with that one. Do it without remorse because you're doing that for you. And like whether you play it or not, that's already going to be out there. And plenty of people, the vast majority of people inside of Activision, in Activision, like they're pursuing their dreams and they're doing the best job they can in the whole industry. Like, even though I don't I think that I'm unfair with the game because I usually compare it to like what it could be, what it was, and where it is right now. So it's kind of like when you say this is shit, but obviously it's a game that excels in a large variety of aspects. So yeah, like there's honesty behind that,
Yeah,
and you should embrace that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I also find it hard to like criticize sometimes. Like, if I don't like something, I don't like something. But even in our conversation with Ubisoft, we kind of admitted that the fact that they technically, in the technical aspect, their work is pretty solid. Like Grease or whatever it is, it's always done pretty cool. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, we've covered everything we needed to cover here. If I haven't, let me know. But we are now moving on to the "What are we playing?" section of the podcast. This will prove to be, maybe I'm wrong, maybe we talk about 2 hours more about all these games, but I think this is going to be a shorter episode than the previous one. So I have a lot of games here, like you can see in the document, but let's hear about you. Let's hear from you.
So I think I'm gonna be like a few more weeks into with Judgment and Mass Effect, but I do have to say that Judgment has been kind of like a surprise. Like, I'm getting like all the vibes I wanted from the game, and the case that you're trying to solve is great. The animations are great. The game just keeps getting fun and fun and fun. There are some things that are a bit repetitive, but I'm digging it. Like, I want to know. I really want to crack that crime open, and I'm gonna be playing a lot of it that weekend. With Mass Effect Legendary Edition, something happened to me. The last weekend I played way too much. Like, I played like. I'm almost, for those who haven't played it, you basically have like some side missions for each character, and I've been basically like I basically played all of them on a span of 2 days. So I'm just kind of like resting a little bit before I do kind of like the DLCs and whatnot. And honestly, I completely remembered why this was my favorite game ever. What a great game! Also, like there's the news that is selling well beyond expectations. So I think that we can expect more coming. Like if I have to bet, it's like they're probably gonna do like do the same thing with Dragon Age. And if they do that, then that's also going to be super sweet if they get around it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I remember I tried Dragon Age Origins back in its day, and I didn't really like it because I have an issue with RPGs where I'm not controlling the actions.
Yeah.
Like for example, we talked about last episode about WoW, and the thing about WoW is like you say attack and he starts attacking, and but you're not really doing the things, and that's what kind of messes with my brain. But yeah, so loving about your Mass Effect 2 conversation. I bought the game recently. I have the Legendary Edition now, so I will be playing that soon. When I don't know, I mean, my backlog is getting bigger and smaller.
If you keep adding games, then it takes longer to play the other games.
Absolutely, I totally
keep that in mind.
Totally true. But I mean, I just can't help myself, man. Game Pass is crazy. I mean, Game Pass is crazy. Yes.
Yeah. This past few weeks, I think like it's been the first time in years where I'm like, oh, I don't have a console to play that game, and it was like, wow. Because you're playing the Ascent. How is it? I saw it was like super cool.
So the Ascent. Let's start with that one. So this one was one that I was kind of anticipating. Action RPG, isometric, cyberpunk. Seemed to be really, really cool. Twin stick shooter, which I'm not. I mean, I don't hate twin stick shooters in any way, but I'm not a fan either. It's like I can take him or leave him. So I started this one. I think the lore is really amazing. Like they have, so the whole reason it's named the Ascent is because you're ascending in this kind of colony, cyberpunk colony. That so the lower levels are the poorer levels, and then as you go up and up, it's like you go up in social classes. So it's kind of like a Snowpiercer kind of vibe in that way. If anybody saw that movie.
I have that's a very common trope when it comes to sci-fi. I think it's kind of like the same thing in Dread. I don't know if you've seen that. There's the one with Carl Urban where he's driving like they're in. See that. You should see it because it's like the best movie in the world. I'm not kidding. Like it's one of my favorite movies. They are fighting like inside like a huge block, like one of those. I don't know, kind of like basically like what's the name for that? Like kind of like a poor like buildings, like brutalist huge buildings where like the poor families are on top and the warlords and criminals are on top. The poor families are on the bottom. So
okay, that sounds pretty cool. But yeah, so this follows a similar thing. The aesthetics, like the whole neon thing, the whole cyberpunk thing, like aesthetically, the game is awesome. Like looks really really good.
Also, it's made by only 11 people.
Yeah, it's like, exactly. It's made by it's a moment. The thing is that I started playing it. I was loving all this, but the gameplay itself, the combat, is not bad in any way. It's good. It's just that it's not clicking with me for some reason. I don't know. Like this sometimes happens with games. Sometimes maybe I take it up again in a couple months and then I love it. But at this time, there's something that's just not letting me move forward with it. I don't really know what it is.
That happens to me as well with twin sticks and also with Metroidvania games. Like it's either take it or leave it for me.
Okay. In this case, so there was one thing that I saw that was pretty weird, and then I saw a couple of reviews where they highlighted this as a negative aspect, and it's that so okay, you kind of go through this tutorial, you get a couple of side quests, and I'm a guy that I love to do all the side quests first and then go forward. And so I go to this side quest, and so on the way to it, to the destination, I encounter enemies that are super high above my level that are just killing me, which is like, okay, this is weird because this is also the only way you can get to that part. It's not like there's multiple ways and I've just happened to find the way that was filled with these enemies. So that was kind of stupid. So I just waited a little bit, moved forward, got a couple of levels, and then I said like, oh, okay, let's try that again. So I went through the same corridor. I managed to kill the enemies, even though they were less hard, but they're still pretty hard. And then I get to this elevator that's closed. So it's like, okay, you're giving me a quest that I can't access yet. So why are you giving it to me now? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I read about it. Like there's some backtracking that you can do in levels and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of weird, and I don't know. Like, I'm finding it hard to explain why I'm not feeling it because, as I said, like the lore, the world building, the whole like yeah the whole world that you're in is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna go back to it. I even went as far as to delete it from the hard drive. But
Ooh.
I know. But yeah, I mean,
That's a dead game for me.
to me, not so much because I am a big fan of deleting games from the hard drive. So sometimes I do, like with Yakuza Zero, famously, everybody knows in the world that I tried to play that game for like 5 times, and then finally it just clicked for some reason.
To me, it happened with Horizon Zero Dawn. Like I bought it like kind of like on launch day. I was like, I'm not feeling this. Like it was like something weird about it. Then I tried it again. Didn't like it that much. Then I tried it like on 2019 again, and then it was like, this is the best game of the generation. What the fuck have you? What was wrong with me?
You know which one it happened to me? Because I mean, Yakuza Zero is not a good example because I went through 7 and then I went back. So that doesn't make sense. But it happened to me with Hitman, the reboot. So that game came to PlayStation Plus years ago. And I've tried to play that game so many times and it was like, this is boring, this is kind of weird, this is blah. And then for some reason I was like, I'm a big fan of stealth and this is a stealth game. Like, why am I not playing this? And I just went into it with that mindset, and it was like brutal. O sea, I loved it so much, and I loved it so much that I went straight into the second and the third one, like without thinking it. And yeah, like I think Hitman 3 is probably so far maybe my game of the year. I thought that was really awesome. I loved it.
Cool.
Yes.
I don't like them.
Oh well, yeah. It's not for everybody.
But it's like exactly. I would say like it's one of those cases where it's like I don't know, like it's there's I haven't clicked with that franchise at all. Like there's always something that I'm like I like I don't know, like the whole thing of like planning out trial and error is just it just doesn't click. Like there's something, but I think that's cool because it means that for some people it's really great. Like usually,
Yeah, I
like
mean,
when there are things like that are small that I'm like, not clicking for me. It's probably something that other people were missing out for years, and they found it with this thing.
yeah. No, I totally get you. I think that the thing that didn't click for me for so many years is that you have so many options that I get kind of like overwhelmed, you know? Like you can kill it this way and kill him this way and kill him that way. It's like
But that's part of my issue because it's like I am kind of like the first time I try to do the hit, it's like this could be like I go for the most straightforward, less cinematic way of doing it, and then it feels awkward, and then it's like you do it, and it's like okay, I should go again, and then have more options, or I don't know, like that whole uncertainty doesn't really click. But if it clicks for people, then that's cool because I'm not like a huge replay guy, so if I kill the guy by just like shooting him from the window and then it's a mess and then I find a way to run back, it's like I'm like okay, it's done, and then I'm not happy with the result. But I wouldn't be like okay, let's go back, be cleaner, and like I wouldn't find much more joy in that.
I totally understand because I think that's kind of where my mind was. I think that because I'm not a big replay guy either. I mean, I finish a game and the first thing I do is delete it from the hard drive. Like, it's like I don't even think about it unless I want to platinum.
For me, it breaks. Like immediately after I finish it, like it loses meaning. Like it's no longer kind of like a sandbox. Like if the game's over, it's over. So yeah, like it feels as a different game. I have to immediately restart it to like okay, let's go back to enjoying the game.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. The thing that hit me here, just to end the whole Hitman thing, is the level design that these people do to make this all these options available to you to do the objective is not only genius but super fun. Because I don't know, like there's a level where you can poison a guy. You can also wait for him to go give a speech, and then you drop a statue on him. Like it's so varied that's what brings me again
And
and again
all,
and
and
again
also
to the thing.
the areas have different clearances. So like you could walk into a place and then not be allowed into the other one unless you disguise, and then if you disguise, then you have to mitigate the whole thing. And there's a lot of interactions like with windows and like climbing and like moving around. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's super cool, but I totally understand if it doesn't click for some people because it is kind of overwhelming. Okay, so the next game I was playing, that I am playing because I haven't finished it, is It Takes Two. This is Haze Light's newest game. These are the people that made Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, and A Way Out, which I thought A Way Out was super good. I was talking with Cristian about the spoilers because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But it's an awesome game, and It Takes Two is following in the same footsteps. It's really, really good. Looks amazing on the Series X. I'm imagining that on the PS5 looks amazing as well. The story, it's about this couple that's kind of getting a divorce, and then the child is of course not on board, and then they, for some reason that I'm not gonna go into, they turn themselves into these dolls, and then they have to go in this adventure. And I assume that they're kind of learn on the way about the fact that they kind of took each other for granted a little bit. Safe to say. I mean, I don't expect to be wowed by a narrative twist in this game, but it's just so fun. The gameplay. I know how you mentioned a couple of episodes ago. I don't remember what game it was, but you said that games have to like change or evolve, right? For them to be compelling to you. And this game does that every 30 minutes almost. Like you have this level where you're platforming, and then you move forward, and it's kind of like a rails thing where you're railing like in Ratchet and Clank. And then they give you this gun where you're doing this thing with your partner. So it's switching. So it switches often enough so that the gameplay doesn't get stale, but it doesn't do it so fast that you don't get to savor it, you know? So the pacing of this game has been really, really awesome. And yeah, I totally recommend it. I believe that by just buying it, you get a free pass for a friend if you want to play it on co-op online or whatever it is. So that's pretty cool. Then I played this other game, indie, although it doesn't look indie, but it is an indie. I think it's made by 15 people or something like that. Mortal Shell. This is the most Souls-like that I've seen. I'm sure you've seen it around.
Yeah. I think that the whole gist of the game is that you can get into other bodies and then have different skills or something like that. But it's a Souls-like game.
Yeah, exactly. And this game kind of gave me a little revelation that I wasn't expecting, which is I totally enjoyed it. I already beat it last night, maybe. It's not very, very long, but it's also priced accordingly. I believe it's $30, if I'm not mistaken. And I totally recommend it. Like, really, really good. The production value for such a small team is awesome. They have this new mechanic in the combat where you harden. So you're kind of doing a combo with a sword or whatever, and then when they're gonna hit you, you could roll like in other Souls games, but you can also press LT or L2, and that hardens you, like turns you into stone, and that makes them either not hit you or interrupt their combo, and then you can kind of go from there. And it is a pretty cool addition or a pretty cool mix to the Souls formula, in at least in terms of combat. And also what you mentioned about possessing bodies, you have like 4 what they call shells, which are, I believe, previously deceased characters with different stats. Like some of them have more health, some of them have more stamina, and that's kind of the main change that they have between them. They also have different upgrades that you can buy for them, and that's sort of like the only character building part that it has. But going back to what I said before, the realization that I had was that this game is not an RPG, but it's still a Souls-like. And I don't know why I always kind of married the two. Like a Souls-like has to be an RPG, but that doesn't make any sense because I've played Hollow Knight, which is also a Souls-like, and it's not an RPG in any way. There are examples, but like this game, like there's no stats in terms of like how much strength, how much endurance, how much vitality. Like there's none of that, which kind of makes it a little cooler. I mean, not cooler, but it's kind of cool because you don't really have to worry so much about that. Like you also only have 4 weapons. You don't have like this big variety of weapons.
You don't have the inventory of Dark Souls 3.
Not at all. And that is like like I said, a blessing and a curse. It's cool to have a good variety of weapons, but if you don't have so many weapons, you can kind of, like center on the ones you love the most between those 4 and kind of pick a favorite. And yeah, like less choice is not sometimes a simpler experience can be a little more straightforward. That's just what I meant. But yeah, like I loved it. I thought it was pretty cool. Of course, it doesn't reach the heights of any of the best Souls-likes in any way. But yeah, I totally recommend it. I think for you, it would be a really cool. I've seen it discounted many times because I was having it on my wish list.
I might check it out because I've also seen like people doing like speedruns of it, and it's like, well, this looks like something I could play. The only thing is that whenever I play like Soulborn games that are not from software, I'm usually not enjoying them as much. Like I think that the attention to detail that From Software has around their whole philosophy of like being so punishing makes it that the only games, like even I think we were discussing this with Jedi Fallen Order, like I really liked the game, but I was playing it in hard, and at some point I was like, this is bullshit. And then again, like I play like in the first week, probably it's been patched out and performance has improved and whatnot. But I remember thinking like not having fun with this one. And I think it also happens with Lord of the Fallen. Like it was also kind of like a Souls-like game that was like it's missing that spark from the From Software people. But I should definitely give this one a try because a lot of people has told me that it's really good, and I'm sure like it's not. I don't think that From Software is the only studio that can make a Soulsborne.
Oh no,
game.
totally.
They just invented it, perfected it, but they could probably more of them.
They're just geniuses, but that's the only thing. That's it. No,
Exactly.
no. I totally understand what you mean. Like I played Lords of the Fall and I finished it as well, but that one felt like a cheap knockoff. That one feels like this is not like this is what I want, but a less quality. So it's that's weird.
That's exactly the feeling. Like this is less balanced. It's not as challenging, but at the same time, it's very punishing. If with some level design, I don't know. Like that's the thing. The bar is so high with Dark Souls that it's hard for anyone to even come close. And I think that's a good thing because it means that there's a challenge there.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I imagine that developing a Souls game is kind of the Souls game of developers,
Yeah, literally, because like it has to be hard. It has to be a challenge, and there's no room for you to fuck up.
Yep. But this one is, I would say, much better than Lords of the Fallen. I think I enjoyed it maybe more than The Surge. I played The Surge 1 and The Surge 2, which I thought were also better from Lords of the Fallen, from the same team, Deck 13, I believe. But yeah, this one also the fact that they're an indie studio kind of makes it climb higher for me a little bit because I appreciate the effort a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, 100%. Like it's not too long. I mean, I've seen in How Long to Beat it says 10 hours. I believe I may have taken a little bit more because I like to explore. But yeah, it's not a long game at all. So I would recommend it very, very much. And then the one I started yesterday, Yakuza Kiwami 2, the remake of Yakuza 2. This one, I've seen very little of it already, but what I've seen is already hooking me. I mean, this Yakuza series, just like with you with Judgment, I am so amazed. Like, I don't know if I'm more amazed by the games or for the fact that they managed to grab me as much. You know what I mean? It's kind of like two separate things in my mind.
Yeah, I think for me it's the type of game that like hooks me up, like this story-driven RPG, Japanese attention to detail, small map kind of thing. Like I think that's just such a cool formula. Maps are too big in American games. Like I think that Kamurocho has enough detail on its I don't know 20 blocks than most open world games out there. Probably a lot more detail than any Ubisoft game released in the past 5 6 years.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I was kind of wondering because I was seeing the chronology of games that Ryuga Gotoku Studio have released, and it's like 2015 Yakuza 0, 2016 Yakuza Kiwami, 2016 maybe later Yakuza 6, and then to Yakuza Kiwami 2, and then Judgment, and then Yakuza 7. And it's like, how do these people do this? And then I got to the realization that these guys have done 7 Yakuza games, 2 Judgment games, and spin-offs and stuff like that. So yeah, let's say 9 games with the same Kamurocho. And that is cool because it gives them the ability to, have a small area but that feels lived in, which for me they totally
Yeah.
deliver on that front. Like you walk through the streets and you see things moving, you see the neon lights, you see people walking. Like it's like since they don't have such a big map, they are able to focus and really fine tune, and I
Yeah.
love that. I think it's so awesome.
And they repurpose everything from one year to the next, and they improve whatever they think that they can improve, and the other things are just set. Like you eat the same food, you interact the same way. Like it's those things are reused, and they can focus on just writing new stories and writing new sequences and animating new stuff, and I think that's cool because for me it's very important the fact that it's what you're saying, like it feels like a city where things have happened, like where things happen. Like that's the thing with Western games and their big open world things. Something happens in an area and then that's it, that's all that area is used for until at most two things happen in the same place. But here things happen constantly, like this street is dangerous, or this is a street where they try to kidnap my girlfriend, and this is at the same time this is a street where I caught that guy, and like and the story goes back and forth, and this is where we found the body, and this is where I always eat ramen, and those things really stack up, and they're the same. Like they just keep building on top of that, and it keeps them, instead of being like a new Call of Duty every year, there's a new Yakuza game every year, and they focus on what's cool, which is like writing the story.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you mentioned it because I hadn't given it words, but that feeling that you're describing about like you get to know the streets, you get to know the places, and then you kind of it's not attachment really. It's like
Familiarity, I would say.
yeah, it's familiarity, but also like I've witnessed things happen here, and in my case, since I've played like many like more titles in Kamurocho, like I have history within decades. Like in the 80s I did this, and then in 2018 I did this with Ichiban, and it's very funny, but it's pretty cool. Like it's awesome because you start off thinking of the history or what is happening with this character while I'm doing this with this character. Because for example, Ichiban goes to prison in 1998, and then Kiryu is also in prison. So I believe that they kind of overlap being in prison, and then that the other one is in prison while this one's doing this. So it's kind of just very very cool. I don't know. I really love it.
The fact that it spawns around decades and different characters and whatnot makes it endearing. Like it's like you know what you're in for. And I think that some games do that. I think that Days Gone does a little bit of that. Like a lot of things happen in the same areas of the map, and you visit the same locations again for different stories. And the thing is, like, some people think that's cheap, but for me, it's like what we were discussing. It's like it's the opposite. It's like I know this place. I'm from around here. I've been here several times. Like I know this is where this should happen if that was the case. Or like you go again and you find something new. And I think that's the case in Days Gone with things like there's an area where there's a church, and then you go there and do several missions. Then you find out that something important happened in that church and stuff like that. And it's like, whoa, this is cool. And I don't know, and I think that whole thing. Also, Nier Automata did that very much. Like the area is so small, and that keeps you engaged. That gives you the idea of like you inhabited that place. You just like walk through it or just went through the level. I think that
Absolutely.
backtracking and going back to the same places, it's important for immersion in games, and also kind of like it's not like keeping it realistic, but keeping it like I don't know. Like I don't know how to put it exactly, but it's just like the familiarity is so important in
Yeah,
this game that they keep you going. Like it's like why I'm gonna play 7 games of this. It's like well because you have to. Like you want to know what happens. It's fun.
absolutely. Yeah, no,
Yeah, and
totally.
I'm really excited that I'm probably gonna like try to finish like Judgment this weekend, then continue with Mass Effect. But I'm really excited about Lost Judgment, so I'm gonna be able to like finish this one, then play the next one, which is gonna look like it's looking good. And I saw like some making of, and it's funny because like there's a school in the next game, and they were showcasing it, and the lead designer was super happy about how faithful the modeling of the school was. So he was like, whoever went to school, which is basically everyone, they're gonna find themselves looking for all the details that a Japanese school could have. And it's like, well, that attention to detail is not there in most games. Like in the West, it's like if fruit doesn't explode, then we're like, oh shit, this sucks.
Yeah, man, it's really a shame, but I commend these guys for doing what they do because on paper the idea of always having the same map sounds kind of bad because it's like aren't people gonna get tired of it? But no, like in this case it was handled completely perfectly because like we've discussed, like they iterate upon it and they fine tune it and then they perfect it. Like the changes you see in visual fidelity, that's something I also wanted to mention. Like from Yakuza Kiwami 1 to Yakuza 6 and then ultimately also Kiwami 2, Judgment, and 7, they changed engines. They changed to the Dragon engine. And the change in graphics and the change in mechanics and combat and everything has been really dramatic, and I've really, really love like everything that I'm seeing. And yeah, like that's something also pretty exciting. And the other thing I wanted to say about this, I know we've mentioned it before, but this having the same environment, which as we said, they fine tune it and everything, allows them to allocate resources to other things. And that one of the things that I find so masterful in these games is the writing. The writers for the Yakuza / Judgment series, like this is some of the best characters and some of the best things that I've played story wise in a long time, a very, very long time. So I don't know, like I'm just really excited about having discovered this thing that does things so differently from what I'm accustomed to with the big maps and the not lived in worlds and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm hoping to have all the games finished by when Lost Judgment comes out so that we can both play it at the same time and speak about it and
And try
everything.
to find that bastard that killed that guy in the trailer.
Exactly. And yeah, the last game that I wanted to talk about, because I forgot about it here in my list, is Greedfall. Greedfall is an RPG published by Focus Home Interactive, made by Spiders, a French studio, which initially when you play it, you may have seen it because it was one of PlayStation Plus's free games for January, I think, for 2021. So this game is a AA game, so it has that kind of different feel. Like it's not indie, but it's not AAA.
Yeah.
It's kind of in the middle. And initially, I played it on PS5, and I was like, "This feels awful." Like the combat is so janky, and I immediately deleted it. Then I saw a couple of YouTubers that said like, "No, this game is. I mean, it has its jank, but it has some other things like we discussed with Yakuza, right?
Yeah.
Like it may not have a different map each time, but that leads them to do other things. In this case, it's kind of like a colonial sorry, not Bioshock. What? It's kind of like a colonial Mass Effect in some kind of ways. I mean, you have this character, you have choice, you can allocate some attribute points to like lock picking or charming so that you can have different dialogue options. You can allocate them to alchemy so that you can have some potions that explode. So when you're tackling an objective, you can go in guns blazing and kill everybody. You can sneak and maybe lockpick over here. You can maybe use one of those potions to explode a wall and go in through there. So the design around choice and around all those things is pretty cool. So I do commend those guys for that. The only reason why I stopped playing it was because I was saying, okay, this game is pretty cool. It has some Mass Effect vibes here and there. It looks great because it recently got a next-gen patch. But I have so many games on my list
I can't keep going.
Yeah,
train them.
Yeah, because I have Mass Effect that I just told you I bought. I have Judgment. I have the other Yakuza games. I bought also Final Fantasy for the PS5 because I haven't played that game and I really want to. I have Pathless. I have, and it's like this game. As much as I'm loving it right now, it's gonna go to the bottom of the priority list, and I have to go to Yakuza Kiwami too. I have to.
I mean, an important thing of managing the backlog is like you have to maximize your fun. Like you cannot be a slave to content of all things. Like
yes,
you have to just play. Like don't feel anxious about things that you haven't played yet. Like there's probably gonna be another pandemic around the corner. You'll have all the time in the world.
It's probably
exactly, but it's a good thing that you can choose. Like, and I apply the same thing with books. Like, if a book is not fun enough, then just don't play it. Like, you just don't read it. And the same thing for games. If it's not making it for you, if you're not engaged, then you're not doing yourself a favor. You're not doing the developers a favor. Like, they want you to experience a fun game, and if they have to do better, they better step up. And that's pretty much it. With Gridfall, I think I had some mixed reviews overall. Like, but yeah, it's like that's a curse of the AA gaming that warm waters are the most dangerous waters of all. So, just it's just a comfort zone, and then people might just not pick up your game. Like games, I think that when you have those resources, you have to really bet on some aspects in order to make it. Some games they manage to champion through, like for example, Darksiders. I think it's like one of the few AA games that I think that they managed to secure like a successful enough franchise to pivot and do like other stuff. But with AA games, it's like that's it. Like they release it, it's either hit or miss.
Yeah, that's true. But I also feel that it's cool that AA games are kind of making a comeback, because for the beginning of the PS4 generation and everything like that, it was either you're super indie or you're super AAA. There was nothing in between. And I mean, I remember back in the PS2 days, like maybe 90% of what I played was AA, and it was pretty cool. I kind of liked it.
There's variety in there, but there's also some crap that you're just like, how am I playing this? But then again, it's not crap. It's not really crap. It's just that a game, when it falls into the non-controversial, non-polarizing waters, then it's like, okay, it's a game. It exists. If I have the time, I will play it. But like the important thing about these games nowadays, like you make a time for them. So that's kind of like the big challenge, that they are competing for your precious time, and in order to do that, they have to be better than a Netflix show, they have to be better than a book, they have to be better than other games in the same category. So they have to try to be unique.
Yes, I totally agree. And in this case, unfortunately, even though I highly recommend it and I liked it and I probably will play it in the future, I fell out of it because I needed to play other things. So we've reached the end of our episode, once again with the illustrious Cristian Caroli here, who has a podcast that you should check out at
hammerspacepodcast.com. Feel free to check it out. Remember, it's in Spanish, but still there.
Absolutely. We will be here next week with another episode. I don't know what the topic's going to be, but we're going to try to make it interesting. I believe we may do another countdown, because I really enjoy those countdowns, and I think they're pretty cool. Like the you go and I go. I think that's pretty cool. But so yeah, we loved having you here. If you like this video, please subscribe, like it, comment, What do you think about the whole boycotting? Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you think there's something we missed? I would love to hear from you, and maybe we can include your feedback in the show in the future. If we see something that's pretty interesting and pretty cool, we will say like, hey, correction from the last episode. We are idiots because we said didn't cover this. So yes,
we make mistakes. Definitely open. We are humans.
Yes, we are, my friend. And on that note, we'll see you next episode.